Hello, welcome back to my channel. In today's tutorial, we're going to be doing something a little bit different and drawing a pet portrait in Procreate. So we're going to be making this pet portrait a little bit realistic and also a little bit artistic as well, just using some of Procreate's native brushes in there. So I'll take you through the step-by-step process of how to import your photo of your pet and be able to create a artistic yet somewhat realistic, lifelike portrait of your animal. And let's dive right into it. So we're going to start with an A4 canvas. We're going to go to insert photo under actions, and we're going to select whichever photo that you want to capture in your art of your pet. So we're going to expand it to fit the frame. And what we're going to do next is we're going to go to the layers, we're going to click that N button, and we're just going to dilute the image or just turn down the opacity. For this portion, we are going to keep an outline of the animal, and I want to use the syrup brush. I like this brush because when you put more pressure on it versus take more pressure off, it creates thicker versus thinner lines. I'm also going to import the color palette for this picture as well, and you can do this too for your own image. And all you need to do is click that plus button near the color palette and import the image, and it will bring in all those colors for you. So we're going to create a new layer, and we're going to use this pen to create our very sleek lines. Some of them we want to have a little bit thicker in some areas, and some we want to have a bit thinner in some other areas. So you'll notice I kind of play with the pressure a little bit, and I'll go back and forth a few times over some of these lines because the goal here is really just to capture the features of your animal. So if you notice that they have little lines, like this little pit bull here has, you know, some smile lines and whatnot. So we want to just make sure that we're capturing all the different unique features of the animal. If you have a fluffy animal, I would just recommend just trying to trace the outline of the hair, but we don't want to pay too much attention to a lot of detail because we do want it to be, you know, more of a like fun artistic drawing, but still holding a little bit of realism to it. So we'll be keeping the outline of this drawing today, and it will just overlay on top of the image because I feel like it gives it that little bit more like drawing effect. So we're going to be keeping that. So we want to make sure our lines are nice and crisp looking and not too wonky. So just keep that in mind as you're going through this. So I just trace over specific areas. Like for example, we're obviously going to be outlining around the entire animal, but in terms of actually choosing which lines we want to add on our pet's face is really where the magic kind of comes in, just to make it look like your animal. So I'm just going to go around this dog here and outline him, and when we go in to do some of the facial features, you'll notice that I just pick select areas to add in those lines. Like for example, the color differentiation between the white part of his face and the orange part as well. And just trying to capture a little bit of detail around his ears right now. Fantastic. So this is our outline of our dog. We're going to create a new layer on top or underneath this, sorry. So we're going to be choosing from the color palette that we imported. And what I like to do in this section is, because some of the lines are very light in some areas intentionally, and some of them are thicker, they're not all connected completely, so we can't use this as a reference layer. So we have to create another layer that sits underneath this line layer. And we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to make this dog all one color. So you can just take your syrup pen again and just outline around the entire animal. So what we can start off with doing is just go around the entire animal, close off any of the lines, and then we're going to color drop. So for this specific tutorial, I'm going to use the sassafras brush, and we're going to take a darker color. We're going to start adding in some shadows or some low lights to the dog now. Again, you might want to adjust your brush depending on the type of fur that your animal has, but this is a short-haired animal, so we're just going to start off with using this brush. I found it to give a kind of cool effect when adding in some lines and whatnot, because we're not going to be, you know, replicating the fur too much. So another tip I would recommend is go to your canvas under your actions and import the image so that you can look at it while you're going through and working on, you know, carving out the different highlights and lowlights of your pet. So I'm just going to pay attention to where some of the dark parts are, as well as some of the highlights, and then we're going to go ahead and blend out this portion as well. And you can do this all on either the same layer as well, or you can go ahead and create another layer for this portion and just have it as a clipping mask as well. All right, now that we're blending some of this out, I do it quite delicately. I find that the strokes of the sassafras brush almost imitate hair in a very artistic way while capturing it to be still a little bit realistic. So we're just blending this out. Make sure that you're always blending the direction that the highlighter low light is going. So that's exactly what I'm doing here, just making very light strokes across some of these hard lines that I have. Alrighty, I am going to create a new layer this time, but we're going to be doing it on, we're going to be using, sorry, the a lighter color just to go in for some of the highlights. So go ahead and create a new layer. You can also, again, always have this as a clipping mask layer so you don't go outside of the lines. However, what we want to do here is just start adding in some of the light areas that we see on our pet. Alrighty, now we're going to go ahead and create a new layer. We're going to clip it as well, so it's going to be obeying that layer 3. So what we'll go do next is we are going to go back to our syrup brush, and we're going to be taking a white because now I'm going to go in and draw the white portions of his face and his body. And so the reason we do this on a new layer is so that we can go ahead and edit this part of his face and body, being the white part, without affecting any other piece of the drawing. So if we want to manipulate the white part for any reason, like add in any, shading or anything like that, it makes it a lot easier for us. So now I'm going to go to an airbrush tool. So this is good for blending anything. So I'm just going to pull this down a little bit. What I noticed on this pet specifically, the white part of his face doesn't go all the way down to the bottom of his mouth. So I am going to drag it down a little bit just so it fades at the bottom, but then we're going to go in and shade some of it. So now I'm going ahead and I'm actually going to alpha lock this layer because I don't want to go outside of the lines. I just color select by holding my finger over top of the area I want to capture the color, and I just put it into the drawing like so. So this just allows me to stay within that white part of the drawing. So I'm just trying to mimic some of the birthmarks he has on his mouth a little bit. Again, I don't want to go too detailed because I do still want this to be a bit more fun and a bit more artistic rather than just focusing strictly on realism. So still adding some essence of that, but just going in with an airbrush here and just going to blend out some of these portions. Alrighty, so next we're going to create a new layer. I'm not too worried about clipping mask for this one just because it is going to be for his tongue. So anything in the middle of the body that's not going to be touching the outer edges, I'm not too worried about having as a clipping mask. But I'm just going to fill it in with one bulk color, and then after that I'm going to go ahead and shade the tongue as well. Alrighty, so next we're going to create a new layer, and this is for his eyes. So I'm just taking a light brown color to go around the edges, and then we'll fill in the eye and start adding in some more features to that as well. So there's a few different layers to his eye. Notice there's the outer part, and then there's that inner iris almost part, and then he's got another darker brown layer, and then he has his pupil, and then the light reflection. So we're going to start off by just trying to mimic that and going in with that orange color that we see first. So I wanted to make that a little bit brighter just because I find that his eyes are actually quite bright orangey kind of. So it's probably light brown, but looking a little bit orange. And then we're going to go in with a darker brown and then fill in his pupil afterwards. Next, I'm just color selecting his nose because we're going to go in with a new layer, and we're just going to draw out his nose here. So again, I'm just tracing it around the edges, and then it makes it a lot easier to color it in afterwards. So with this, once I fill this in, I'm going to alpha lock it, and we're just going to be adding in some lights and darks to the nose as well. All right, just gonna go back to the white part of his snout because I just wanted to add a little bit more color to it, just because I did notice there's a bit of a pink patch there. Alrighty, so I go in and I create a new layer and I make it also clipping mask as well, just so I make sure I don't go outside of the lines. And this is going to be for his chest portion. So we're just gonna be drawing that white spot in his chest. Again, you know the drill. I go around and I trace around the edges of where I want the white spot to be, and then I go ahead and color fill that. We go back to the layer, then we're gonna alpha lock it, and this allows us to color just within the lines, which is exactly what we want. I take a medium blend and I just start adding in some different shades just to add a little bit more depth so it's just not so stark white. And yeah, so I'll go in with a little bit of a more light brown kind of yellow color, and then we'll add in a little bit more depth in there as well afterwards. Alrighty, so next we're going to be doing the ears. So I just color selected that. I just went back to the original body layer. We're going to be choosing sassafras under the artistic category again, just so I can add in some lightness to his ears. Alrighty, so I also noticed that his face is still quite a bit lighter, so I did want to try to capture that. So I start by adding in some more highlights to his face and to his body as well. Still using that same brush, and I'm going to go ahead and blend these out afterwards. Alrighty, next I want to create a layer above the tongue, just so that I can get nice and close to the tongue area there. But we're going to be just filling in the mouth. So I'm going to take the syrup brush again, and I'm going to fill it all in to be one color so that I can go ahead and alpha lock it and make it a lot easier to color in inside the lines. So I mainly just use I believe just a airbrush for this portion when I go ahead and start blending it as well. All right, last but not least is our detail layer. I go in and take the studio pen in inking. I go down in color here just by choosing a dark brown, just making some eyebrow hairs, just nice, very thin swoops of my pen. And I'm just going to increase the size of my brush now just to create some of these dots. And what we'll do afterwards is just blend them out a little bit just so they're not as intense, I guess you could say. So we're just also going to be adding some whiskers as well. As you notice, I'm just gonna have my airbrush smudge tool just tapping my pencil over top because we don't want to be dragging any of the drawing over or any of the dots over either. We want them to stay where they are, but just have them be a bit more faded. So that was way too thick. I'm just gonna bring that down a little bit just so that they can be nice and thin. And that's pretty much it. So thank you guys so much for watching this tutorial today. I really appreciate you guys being here. If you want to watch more Procreate tutorials like this, please do not forget to hit that like and subscribe button just so you can stay up to date with all of the Procreate tips that I have to share and all the tutorials that I have to share. And there you have it, your pet portrait. So definitely go check out some of my other videos. I do usually teach a lot of realism portraits, so you can check out the next video in the slide that's just coming up here as well. But otherwise, I am going to see you guys here next week. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.